Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? Welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire once again, people. Now, there's not many left to do in the county. I've virtually covered the whole thing, but there are still 24 to go. There's a nice run between Hull and Beverley. That'll be the last area I tackle, and the rest of it is all between Driffield and Bridlington, and we're very close to Driffield today. This is the parish of Kirkburn. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Kirkburn, Church Stream. This week in the East Riding, we're beginning a run that will take us around Driffield and towards Bridlington once again, and the first one is Kirkburn. This one is quite a complicated parish. There are no fewer than 4 settlements within it, although one of them, Eastburn, technically doesn't exist any longer. The main village is Kirkburn itself, and then there's the hamlet of Southburn and the village of Kelleythorpe, close to the former RAF Driffield. Kirkburn used to be called Westburn in the time of Domesday, but the name was changed after the building of St Mary's Church in the village between 1130 and 1155. Kirk, as we already know of course, means church. Landmarks here are plentiful, but they're not all in the village. Until 1954, Kirkburn was served by a railway station, but that was in Southburn. Kelleythorpe has both Driffield Rugby Club and the Driffield Showground to talk about, as well as a massive industrial estate with a few bits that'll interest you. Of course, RAF Driffield dominates the area and will form the greater part of this episode. The area is famous too for the Kirkburn sword, the finest Iron Age sword ever found in the UK. It was discovered in 1987 and is now on display at the British Museum. So, with lots to cover, let's get moving, shall we? We start in the hamlet of Southburn at the former railway station that served the area. Southburn station was on the old Selby to Driffield line. It opened in 1890 and closed in 1954, although the line remained open as a through route for excursions until 1965. Little remains of the station with the exception of the platform edges and the station cottages, and a farm building now occupies the site of the demolished station building. Just beyond the station is a big factory or warehouse. That belongs to a company called JSR Genetics, one of the largest family-owned farming companies in the UK. They are a highly successful pig genetics company and commercial breeding herd. The company was founded by John Sykes Reimer in 1982, originally under the name JSR Healthbred. Now a much bigger outfit, in 2015 JSR partnered with Top Pigs Norsefin, the world's second largest pig genetics company, and now their pigs are exported all over the world. Not bad for a small hamlet in the depths of rural East Yorkshire. As you can see, Southburn doesn't exactly have a lot more. It's a small hamlet with around 20 or so houses. Its claim to fame, or if you will, infamy, came as recently as 2018 when it hit the headlines thanks to a gruesome murder. I'm not expanding on that because it's not my place to do so, but there is a link down below. Our main walk around Kirkburn village starts right in the centre of civilization at this barn, halfway along Main Street. Firstly, we're off to the east to check out one half of the reason why the place is called Kirkburn. In doing so, we pass Dead Lane, which was cut into two pieces by the A614 when Kirkburn was bypassed several years ago. This originally was the main road from Driffield, and it snaked its way towards Bainton and North Dalton. It's still used by the local buses, mind you. Kirkburn is served by the number 145 that connects the village to both Driffield and Market Wheaton. This is Kirkburn Village Field, which ties in nicely with something we've already mentioned. This field was donated to the village in the 1970s by Derek Megginson and the man we spoke about a moment ago, John Sykes-Rymer. It's an open space designed for the whole village to enjoy, and in here we have a crystal clear stream. It's this that puts the burn in Kirkburn. This isn't just any old stream though. This is Eastburn Beck, and according to the sign we passed a moment ago, this is the most northerly chalk stream anywhere in England. That's got to be a claim to fame, right? Next to pass is the Queen's Head, Kirkburn's one and only pub. This one originated as a house and later became a pub, making it one of the rare few around here to do so. The house is mid to late 19th century, and in its early days it would have served travellers on the road between Driffield and Beverley. Let's head west now, past the pub and towards the modest village green. Between the two, there isn't a lot to write home about. Kirkburn is entirely residential between the 2 points, but its narrow street and enclosed feel is well worth a mention. It's classic East Yorkshire this, isn't it? For the next few minutes, Main Street is all residential, so this is the ideal time to throw in the village's biggest piece of history while we're ambling. I'm talking, of course, about the Kirkburn sword. There's a picture of it on your screen now. This was found in 1987 in a grave that dated back to between 250 and 160 BC. The grave contained the skeleton of a man in a crouched position with his knees pulled towards his chest. The sword, around 69 centimetres long, was positioned behind his back. It's now held in the British Museum, and it's considered to be the finest Iron Age sword in Europe. Next on the green we have a cross which was erected in 1910. It's not a war memorial, but it does memorialise something. It was on this site in 1688 that an elm tree was planted, which grew to have a girth of about 27 feet. It was felled by high winds in 1907, and it was so well loved that it's now remembered by way of that cross. Beside the cross is a phone box, and this still has a working telephone. Note the post box here too. Kirkburn's post office is no longer in use though. Continuing along Main Street, next up is the church, the second half of the place name Kirkburn. You have to say, it's a very, very bendy main street through Kirkburn. It's certainly not a straight line, and on one of the bends you find the church, which you can see behind me just there. Let's go and check this one out, shall we? The Church of St Mary dates back to the 12th century, and this puts the Kirk in Kirkburn. Until it was constructed in 1130, Kirkburn was instead known as Westburn. It's one of the many churches across this part of the Yorkshire Wolds that was rebuilt by John Loughborough Pearson for Sir Tatton Sykes. The Lit Gate, as always, is worth a look, but it's the church itself that boasts the most wonderful work. It has a Norman doorway with traditional motifs of beakhead figures and zigzag patterns. Everywhere you look, there seems to be some kind of beast peering out of the intricate designs. Across the road from the church we have the village hall. This was built in 1936 and it's been refurbished several times. Aside from the church, it's the only communal building in the village. According to the parish council's website, this is available to hire for just £5 an hour. That's got to be the cheapest we've ever come across. In the car park outside we find the parish notice board. Can you believe we've only got 23 left in the East Riding now? And even though it was raining a little bit, the blossom on the trees here still looked pretty, so I couldn't resist capturing this nearby. After the village hall, it's the old National School with an attached teacher's residence. This was erected by Mary, Lady Sykes, in 1860 for the accommodation of 100 children. I have no idea when this closed, but in any event, most of Kirkburn's children now travel into Driffield or head north to Garton on the Wolds instead. The old school is the last property on Main Street that predates the 20th century. The remainder is a mixture of brand new houses and some that were built in the early 1900s. The road then comes to a junction where we'll encounter the route of the 164. The 164 is a Sustrans cycle route that forms part of the fantastic Way of the Roses, which runs from Morecambe to Bridlington. A right turn then brings us to Kirkburn Manor. This is the largest farm that remains in the village today. Some of its buildings, though, have been turned into a small industrial estate. For example, one of them is used as a car repair business. After this, we head up a path which runs around the back of Main Street. On the left-hand side is what looks like a midden, but it is in fact the springhead of Eastburn Beck. It's considered by many to be the source of the River Hull. So this path also goes around the back of the church, and you can see directly opposite the church here how there's an area that's just been left wild. Proper nature reserve that, no one's ever going down there, I'm telling you, it's far too swampy. But you know, standing up here on the safety of this path, it just looks peaceful, quiet and very relaxing. All you're really missing is a bench here, so you can just sit and admire what's down there. Now, this path brings us to the cross that we saw earlier, and that will be the circuit of Kirkburn. But there are some other things still to cover in this episode yet. Now, you might have heard when I was outside Kirkburn Manor there, an aircraft fly above my head at a rate of knots actually. Well, keep aircraft in mind because this next section is all about them. To the north and east of the village are at least two other settlements that fall within Kirkburn's boundaries. One of them is Eastburn, which theoretically doesn't really exist anymore. We're driving through it now. It was originally a township and it contained 843 acres. This in turn consisted of two farms, both of which were occupied by the Jordan family who lived at Eastburn House. That was a neat modern residence standing in a small but beautiful park. There was also a village as well, but that's long since been deserted. However, the site of this ancient village can still be traced on overhead maps. There are a few modern houses here these days. Just beyond Eastburn, dominating the northern side of this road, is the former RAF Driffield. The site was first opened in 1918 under the name RAF Eastburn, and it only lasted 2 years, closing in 1920. In 1935, a new airfield was built, initially training bomber crews. By 1977, the British Army was using it as a driving school, and it was renamed Alamein Barracks, a satellite to Normandy Barracks at Leconfield. The British military still have a presence here. It's now operated as the Driffield Training Area, and it's very much off limits to us. Now, of course, where there's an RAF base, there's always tied housing, and that brings us to Kelleythorpe. All of these properties directly south of the former RAF base would have been the married quarters. This is something we're used to by now, of course. The presence of the RAF greatly expanded what was an ancient settlement. While most people know Kelleythorpe as this block of 1930s and 1940s housing, it goes back much further, but its original form has long since been abandoned. Kelleythorpe was recorded in the Domesday book in much the same way as Kirkburn, Eastburn and Southburn all were. It was nothing more than a hamlet, and what remains of it is now buried under the disused buildings of the 19th century Kelleythorpe farm. There are plans to demolish those buildings and make a brand new service station very soon. Several other buildings already exist in Kelleythorpe. Here's a fine example. Welcome to the home of Driffield Rugby Union Football Club. This clubhouse was built in 2001 after some 5 years of applications to construct one. Until 1950, Driffield, who were founded in 1926, played their matches on a field off St John's Road in the town. The clubhouse was based at the Keys Hotel, where the players' baths were literally old beer barrels that had been sawn in half. The club is right next to the Driffield Showground, which annually holds what many in farming circles consider to be the marquee event in these parts, the Driffield Show. It's been based here since 1954, but the Driffield Agricultural Society can trace its roots back to the 1850s, when they held experiments with new agricultural machinery at Hopper's Farm in Kelleythorpe. The first Driffield Show was held in 1854, an exhibition of farm stock, poultry, horses and implements. The showground is now a multi-purpose events venue, and it covers 4 fields. Lastly, we're off to explore Kelleythorpe Industrial Estate, a swathe of units, warehouses and workshops between the showground and the former RAF Driffield. There are several businesses of note on here, including the site of Mortimer's, well known in agricultural circles for seed, grain and fertiliser. Perhaps the biggest business on here at the moment would be the one you see here. This is C&D Foods. They are the largest private label pet food manufacturer in Europe, and this is one of their 14 sites. The company began as a small venture in County Longford, Ireland in 1969, having been founded by Albert Reynolds. Now it has well over 1,500 employees internationally. And finally, Kelleythorpe Industrial Estate is also the location of Driffield's Royal Mail Delivery Office, seen here on the left as we leave. That's it for Kirkburn. I don't know about you, but this one felt to me at least like the main village was the most insignificant part of this episode. It just goes to show how much stuff you miss out on if you just look at a village and not its surroundings. There's always a lot to learn. So, I'll see you to learn a bit more in the next one, folks. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.